Welcome to the Bolt Podcast. I'm Todd Bertsch, keynote speaker, entrepreneur, and mental fitness coach. I'm here to help you unlock your leadership potential and ignite your personal growth. On the Bolt, my guests and I will dive into inspiring stories of transformation, showing how small mindset shifts can lead to life-changing benefits. We'll explore strategies for overcoming challenges, building high-performance habits, and leading with confidence. If you're ready to embrace a growth mindset and unlock your full potential, then let's ignite your spark today. Today's guest is Justin Hilton, an accomplished leader and visionary whose career spans iconic architectural projects, 2 decades of trailblazing leadership at Kent State University, global initiatives at Goodyear, and now serving as the first African-American president and CEO of Leadership Akron. He's also a motivational speaker, artist, and community leader inspiring change across Greater Akron and beyond. Listeners, get ready for an inspiring conversation. Justin, welcome to the Bolt Podcast, my friend.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you, and thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
It's so good to see you, man.
Yeah, thanks. Likewise.
So you've held leadership roles in architecture, higher education, corporates, and now nonprofits with Leadership Akron. What principles have carried through each of these transitions? Because they're all very, very different.
So I think the short answer is that I would say 2 things. One is people over tasks and relationships over everything. You know, we're human beings first and foremost.
Right.
And what we do is birthed out of who we are. But I think sometimes in our life, in our world, in our economy, what you can do is almost held up higher than who you are as a person, and what's important to us as people, which is not necessarily all of what we do. Right. And so valuing people over tasks is a major principle, and relationships above everything is probably the most important principles that I've been able to transfer with every position or career or industry I find myself in.
Right. Do you feel like you've always had those, or was that learned over time? Right. As a young leader, I feel like we make a lot of mistakes, right? We don't truly understand because we're, like you said, to your point, we're built to produce, and that's what the focus is. We don't really focus on the people necessarily. And maybe you were different.
Well, I certainly am different. That's for sure. I'm all joking aside, I'm not really all that different, right? You know, we all come in the same, right? I mean, we're all born. In my opinion, we don't choose to consciously decide to exist, right? So we all come into this world as a result of other people's decisions and choices. So we enter and we don't know anything. And the home of origin, the context, the neighborhood, the community, all that determines who we are, what we struggle with, what we're going to triumph over, all of those kinds of things. So in that regard, I'm really no different than anybody else. That's not to say you don't have specific skills and talents and gifts and all that other kind of stuff, but that nature-nurture thing is real. And so I had the benefit of, in my opinion, being born into a very healthy context of strong people and leaders around me. And even though I grew up in that, you know, proverbially we say, you know, I grew up in the kids are supposed to be seen and not heard, right? Well, I grew up where you were supposed to be not seen and not heard, right? So it's like Thanksgiving dinners is like kids down in the basement. Like, you know, we don't want to see you. We don't want to hear you, you know.
Right.
And so I was a kid that always just soaked up my entire contextual environment. So my sensory perceptions of what I saw and heard and smelt and felt and all of those kinds of things, like, I took in information always. And so that was a skill and a talent and a gift that I had. But the context that I was in was primarily the result of the decisions that my parents made. And so I was supported with strong people that I could kind of catch things from. And then when I was 18 years old, I met the most successful African-American architect in the United States. And he became my friend, my mentor, my advisor, my employer, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And he was the significant game changer for me, because now I'm 18 years old and I can intentionally learn from what he was teaching me with intentionality directly. And then, I contextually gleaned from everybody that I was around in his architectural firm, which, by the way, were people from all over the world, literally all over the world, Africa, the Middle East, Russia, Germany. I mean, like everywhere. And so I just have always realized the importance of context. And from that moment on, I became hyper intentional about surrounding myself with what I call a personal board of trustees. And those are people that I can trust to speak into my life, that I can trust to teach me, to share with me their wisdom.
Right.
There's a moniker out there that says experience is the best teacher. And I believe that. But I think as long as it's someone else's experience, right? So I don't have to go through what they had to go through. It doesn't have to cost me as much as it may have cost them.
Right.
And so I've always been intentional about surrounding myself with other people. And as a result of that, I think I've learned a lot in a very short amount of time.
Yeah. I can relate to that. I want to go back to what you said just about having that board of trustees. I just launched a newsletter this past week, actually focused on leadership and having that peer group. I say getting off your island, because oftentimes we get, I don't want to say busy, but we're productive. Most leaders are very productive people and they have a lot going on, and we tend to get into a silo. And we all need someone that we can talk to, right? Especially today is National Mental Health Awareness Day. I feel like, I don't know, I just feel like we all need to have more conversations, and especially as we're more isolated now, working from home, several of us, we don't have those true connections that we once had. So I think we need to be very deliberate about creating those connections and having that board of trustees, and whatever you call it. My one buddy calls it your thinking group. I call it my tribe, but that inner circle that you can tap into, support, affirmation, vent, or that they'll challenge you, brainstorm, right? So really important. And I really love how you said context. I was always like that too. And I think it goes back to being highly curious. And that's a big part of everything that I talk about, is curiosity being that spark that ignites personal growth or a growth mindset.
Yeah, I think it's inherent in, again, the human condition. So you got the for-profit sector, the not-for-profit sector, right? And the not-for-profit sectors, they have to have boards, right? And even the for-profit sector, you've got a board of investors, advisory board, this, that, and the other. It's important that we make 35,000 conscious decisions a day, right? So like, are they good decisions? Are they not good decisions? That's 12.7 million choices in a year, right? So who's helping us make these decisions? And again, going back to the reality that we're born as human beings. And so you may be highly skilled in one lane of your life, which is professional or career, but there's relationships, there's your physical body, there's, spirituality, there's financial, there's communication. There are so many lanes on this kind of super highway of life. And the way that I think our country exists, and certainly our educational system exists, it doesn't really equip you for success across all of those lanes. You can I have 3 degrees. They're all in architecture. But does that mean that I have a financial acumen?
Right.
Does that mean I understand tax laws, right? Does that mean that I understand how to be a good husband or a good father? Does that mean that, I'm equipped to live a life in response to, my creator? Does that mean I understand relationship IQ in terms of friends? Like there are so many, just understanding owning a house, goodness gracious, like buying a house and understanding is a house an asset, a liability, all the things that go into that, insurance, there's so much about life. And if we don't have a board of trustees, a tribe, a group, or whatever of trusted people that can speak into that, how do you become an expert in all of those areas of life?
Mm-hmm. Right. And that takes intentionality, and that takes time. You have to go out, not only establish that relationship and build that trust. If it's not like your buddy that you grew up with forever that knows every, dark skeleton about you, and then you need to be intentional about like setting time aside and really nurturing that relationship. And I think that's where a lot of people, yeah, man, let's get together. I say, look, stop right now. Do you really want to get together?
Right. Oh, that's good.
Let's
book it.
Let's
right
look
now.
at, we have our phones. We have our calendars right here. Let's just book it. Right. And then if you really want to have that tribe, make it quarterly. Like set it. And you might have to change it. It oftentimes happens. I have a dozen guys and gals that I meet with, and we have it set. And that's it, man. It's going to happen one way or another. That took some time, but it's going to happen, right?
So you're right. You have to be intentional.
You have to be intentional. So
I intentionally spend my time consciously around three groups of people. People who are where I'm trying to get to, so they can help me, mentor me, et cetera. People who are going in the same direction I'm going, so that we can co-support each other. And people who are trying to get where I'm currently at, so that I can help them, right? It all comes down to an intentionality. We have a finite amount of time in this life. Who are we spending it with and why?
Let's go back to the gentleman that you mentioned. And what's his name?
Robert Madison. Robert Prince Madison.
Okay, because it sounds like he was an extremely influential person in your life.
He was game changer. I mean, you remove him from the equation, and everything about everything is completely different, right?
That's crazy, right? I've had so many conversations on this show about the one person that changed the trajectory of their life, career, profession.
He was my guy, right?
Right.
And so
it's amazing. It gives me kind of chills, because what if that didn't happen, or was it always meant to happen? Right. So we can spend a lot of time.
Well, I
on
believe
that,
in divine appointment. I believe in that. But I also do believe that, we're sort of constructing this. I saw in your office a puzzle, right? An old jigsaw puzzle, right? And so fortunately, whenever you buy a puzzle, there's a picture on the box, right? So that as you're trying to put this puzzle piece together, you at least have an idea of what you're trying to create.
Right.
And I believe life is that way, right? And so our dreams and our goals are our attempt to paint a puzzle piece, a picture, right? And so that if we do that, then the moments and opportunities that come past us multiple times a day, which represent puzzle pieces that we need to grab onto, we're more cognizant and aware and intentional that, oh, hey, maybe I need to grab that piece. Maybe I need to grab that piece. And so in that regard, our choices matter and can align with our vision and dreams and goals. But I also do, therefore, then also believe on the other side of that is just divine appointment, just the providence of God. He's going to allow things to occur, and he's going to allow people to come into your life either for a reason, a season, or forever. That changes it all.
Right.
And he was my guy. For some strange reason, when I was a single-digit age kid, I wanted to be an architect, right? Again, did I really even know what that meant? No. Had I ever seen an African-American architect? No. Right. It's hard to be what you can't see.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
And but I started the process, and here I am. I'm a freshman at Kent State University, just turned 18. So again, I'm super young, don't know anything. And through God's providence, I meet Robert Madison. And this guy, shortly after I met him, and the more I started learning about him, I just always kept saying to myself, they need to make a movie about this guy's life. I mean, it was that amazing, right? So he He became, I believe, is the first licensed African-American architect in the state of Ohio. Okay. So he was raised here. He started his architectural journey, and it was fraught with all kinds of hurdles and intent not to allow him to succeed.
Sure.
Because racial issues back then were at their peak and at their height, right? And so he was intentionally graduated early from architectural school so that he would end up on the ship docks of Cleveland where all the other African Americans were. Because if you don't have the knowledge within your profession, you can't succeed, right? So that was the intent. So for 2 years, he taught himself what they refused to teach him by going to the library and reading every single book on architecture, right? So he was self-taught for 2 years, gets accepted into Howard University, graduates #1 in his class at Howard, gets accepted to Harvard University, graduates #1 in his class at Harvard University, comes back to Cleveland, can't get a job because his skin color is too dark. He gets accepted to the #1 architectural school in the world in France, and he studies under Walter Gropius, the world's greatest architect. So he studies under Walter Gropius, comes back to Cleveland, can't get a job because his skin is too dark.
Still,
right?
Oh my
So
gosh.
he basically had to make an agreement with a European American Caucasian gentleman to say, hey, I will work for you for free. And after a certain amount of time, if you think I'm worth paying, pay me. If not, I'll quit. Like, you won't have to fire me. That's how he had to get his first job. And shortly thereafter, Cleveland got their first African-American mayor. And so now there started to be equitable access to bids for jobs and things of that sort. So he then started to be able to bid after starting his own firm with his brothers. And now the firm is 72 years old, I think now. But when I started working for him and when I met him, the firm had been in existence for 40 years and they had redesigned Cleveland 3 or 4 times. He speaks 3 fluent languages. He was part of the original Buffalo Soldiers of the World War. He has a Purple Heart of Valor. I mean, this guy's life, he actually was engaged to a woman who, when he was going to France, she was going to, I believe, New York to pursue her career. And they decided that they probably, couldn't make this thing work. And her name was Coretta. So they break up. She hooks up with a guy named Martin Luther and becomes Coretta Scott King. So he was engaged to, that's the guy that started speaking into my life when I was 18 years old.
that needs to be a movie.
Game changer.
That story.
That
story needs to be told.
And
That's
so they actually did make a movie.
Oh, they did.
It's called Deeds Not Words, I believe. Deeds Not Words, and it's circulated through the International Film Festival. But yeah, that's that. And then he wrote a book, a memoir. So yeah, it's just a remarkable. I mean, like, what are the chances of that guy
right
speaking into my life?
Right. And he saw something
when I'm 18.
I mean, he could have done that for well, how many African American students were there?
So it's interesting you mentioned that, because as I mentioned, when I met him, the firm was in existence for like 35, 40 years, somewhere around there. And from what I understand, I was the first intern at the firm, right? College intern. Now, Cleveland didn't have an architectural program. So, I mean, there wasn't really anyone to pull from. So to your point, I was kind of like the first one, and I didn't have to be the first one. Me being the first one was as a result of him deciding and choosing that, yes, I'm going to invest in that kid, because he had to have seen something in me that I didn't see in myself. Right. And I tell him all the time. One time I went up there, this was after I had left the firm and went on to multiple different careers. I was getting an award in Cleveland. So I went early and I stopped to see him. And I think it was Kaleidoscope's 40 under 40 or something like that. I forget what the award was, but I go into his firm, go into his office, and I didn't tell him why I was there, right? So he begins to congratulate me on my award. And I'm like, how do you know? right? And he's looking at me like, I mean, come on,
Yeah.
you know? And so he began to congratulate me, and I remember saying to him, I said, I need to congratulate you, because the greatest gift that I believe we can give each other outside of love is belief. So I'm 18. I want to do something significant with my life. I don't know what that is, but he gave me his belief in me. And I took that belief and I allowed it to sort of infuse my life year after year after year after year as a result of that, until I could begin to manufacture a well of belief in myself. But until I can do that, I have to have other people deposit in me their belief.
Right.
And that's the greatest gift that he gave me, was belief in myself, when I didn't have that ability or level to believe in my own self. And so I was saying to him, I was like, I'm congratulating you. I'm thanking you because you gave me your gift of belief in me. And so I'm accepting this award because you planted the seeds of belief in me decades earlier.
Right.
He's the one that taught me that it's so important to give back, because I believe people who are successful, they know and understand that they didn't construct their own success in a vacuum out of nothing. Right. Others poured into them.
Right.
And so there's a responsibility and obligation for you to then pour back into others.
Right.
And so the JLA program that we do at Leadership Akron, where, you know, we invite like 2 students from every single high school in Summit County. And so we normally have a cohort of 40 or so, 40 to 50 high school juniors that are part of our leadership program. And so if I ask a 17-year-old, think about this. If you ask a 17, 18-year-old kid, hey, do you think you could put together a list of 100 wants, needs, desires, dreams, and goals? Most of them, like, they're not saying, oh yeah, I'll have that to you today. Mm-hmm. They're kind of thinking like 100. For some reason, they think 100 is a lot, right? And so whenever I say this to these 40, 50 students, that I kind of get this like, no, that's a lot. And then I say, well, look, if I paid you $100 to create 100 wants, needs, desires, dreams, goals, do you think you could do it? Of course, then all the hands go up, right? And then I say, I'll give $100 to the first kid that brings me a list of 100 wants. And that's what they look at. They look like, this guy is paying us to do this? Like, and then I say to them, what more important thing could I invest $100 in than the next generation's dreams and goals? You know? And so I think I kind of took that and lived that out now because of Robert Madison and how he invested in me. When I was 18, we discovered that I had a sleeping disorder, right? So 85% of the time that I was in class in the 6 years that I was at Kent State as a student, I was asleep. 95% of the written material I was supposed to have read and digested in the 6 years that I was at Kent State, I didn't, because I couldn't stay awake. And yet I got 3 degrees in 6 years. So what that meant is when I was awake, I was having to work 2 and 3 times as hard as everybody else, because I didn't know how long I was going to be able to control staying awake. Wow. Right? So there's all this weight, all of this created, Mentee, it created a unhealthy, unsustainable pace in life.
Right.
Right. I mean, like, it's just, so when my bio was read, I remember when I started doing not motivational speaking, I call myself a contemplative conversationalist, right? Because anytime I'm on stage or in rooms and I'm speaking, I want people to truly feel like we're having a conversation, and that I'm not there to motivate them. I'm there to have them, invite them to consider and contemplate something that maybe they never have in life, or maybe they do it differently than they ever have in life.
Right.
And
that's the job of a good speaker in general.
Okay.
Right? We're having a conversation.
Correct.
Right?
Absolutely. Right. And so that was important for me. And it was a distinction because I didn't want people to associate with me, motivational speaker stereotypes and all that kind of stuff we're having. Yeah. But when I started doing that, and my entire bio would be read, which takes a while. Mm-hmm. And you just have to sit there ready to go on stage, and you have to listen to all of this. And it tracks you through this journey, the process. They're reading the outcome, right? But I'm reminding myself and reliving the process as they're reading my bio. And I'm remembering, just like you said, all of the trials and tribulations and the stress and the challenge and the work and all of that, which we don't often see on the back end when we see people in their suits and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah. Well,
especially
males.
Right.
Because we're not really getting uncomfortable or vulnerable or
transparent, open. Correct. Right. Sharing so that's me speaking about my inadequacy and my sleeping disorder is huge, right? Because just like you said, as men, we don't get that naked. We feel like those are things that we are supposed to. And I got to say, what's not on my resume? A sleeping disorder. That's not on my resume. Like I didn't divulge that in the interview process.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because it was something that I thought was cloaked in shame, and you need to hide that and don't expose that to people. No, you need to put that out there. People need to understand where we struggle so that they can appreciate the back end of the conquer, right? They need to understand that life isn't just this process that's free from challenge and friction, and that it's just going to be this smooth ride. That's not life, right? And the degree to which we're able to be vulnerable and open to share that is the degree to which we can help them understand and set the right expectation and learn the skills that they need to learn in order to traverse their path.
Right.
All of that matters. And so I'm open with that now. And another reason why it's so important for me to do that is this life that I've lived, it has brought me to constantly the limitation of my own ability, right? This concept of capacity is so intriguing to me because there was a time in my life where I believed in unlimited capacity. There's just unlimited capacity. Whatever you believe you can achieve and all this other kind of stuff. And then I realized that I think there is capacity, right? And that's okay for us to be okay with our own capacity, right? And so this journey for me put me multiple times at the limit of my ability. When you are in a situation where you literally cannot control your ability to remain awake, you come face to face with the limit of your ability and your capacity.
Right.
Now, the Bible says that in your weakness, my strength is made perfect, right? So God says to me, when you reach your limit and when you reach your capacity, that's okay, because that's when my perfect strength kicks in. And so who wouldn't want the perfect strength of God on your behalf?
Right.
Sign me up. But if that means that has to come when I am most weak, because, we have things out there called strength finders. There's an entire industry about strength and what you're strong at and all that. What's not published or trademarked to my knowledge?
Right.
Weakness finders.
Right. Yeah. Resilience builders.
All that kind of stuff, right? That's not out there. It's like we're strong, we're hooah, 300, blah, blah, blah. understanding my weakness is such a skill and such a gift because you know what? We can't do it all. We can't. I've tried.
Right. No, we can't. And I'll even take a step further. Like, one, it's to recognize that you have a weakness and be okay with it.
Okay with it. Yes.
But two, what's even more impressive, and I would hire somebody that said, hey, I had a sleep disorder, but you know what? I recognized it, and then I created a plan to do whatever I could in the time that I was awake, right? So, and you still accomplished like incredible feats with that challenge, but you still had to make a choice. And I think that's where a lot of people falter is they let fear override them. They let the negative emotions take over, our saboteurs. So they get sabotaged and then they don't. They just let that challenge, sleep deprivation take over and they're done, right? But you said, no, I'm going to see this as a gift and opportunity.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you.
So you're building resilience and then you're still blazing trails and now you're sharing that, right? You're getting vulnerable and sharing that so that someone else who has that say, oh,
I'm not the only one.
I'm not the only one. And it's okay. We have this guy that's been out here for 30 years being the first and setting all these, creating all these roles for himself and highly successful. I can do this too, right? So I think thank you for sharing that and thank you for getting vulnerable because this show is about that. And I've had several men in high positions on this show, like our mutual friend, Kent Boyd, said, we just need to put labels on these things. We need to get vulnerable, but we also need to label them, right? We all have wounds. We all have challenges. Again, going back to Mental Health Awareness Day, raise your hand, man. Like, put it out there. It's okay. There needs to be a movement with us men who are in positions of influence to say it's okay to have these types of conversations.
I'm not Superman.
We're not broken. I'm not Superman. And this was not easy.
We'll be right back after this short message. Hey, it's Todd again. Did you know that mental fitness is the secret weapon for transformational leadership? Your mind may be sabotaging you, leading you down a path of stress and negativity, but it doesn't have to be this way. If you're ready to unlock the resilience to empower yourself and the team you lead, listen up. Through the Positive Intelligence Program, PQ for short, I help leaders build mental strength, manage stress, and increase emotional intelligence. Imagine reducing burnout, improving your relationships, and increasing performance, all backed by neuroscience. Look, I'm living proof of its power, having rewired my brain after building my mental fitness with PQ over the last 5 years. Are you ready to build yours? Visit toddbertsch.com for more information, and let's get a free consultation scheduled today. Now back to the show.
Yeah, I think you're 100% correct. And I'll tell you, one of the most important impacts that had in my life was understanding how I defined success. I asked myself this question, or at least I received the question that perhaps was being asked to me or of me. And I want you to think about this because you're a designer, right?
Yeah, always will be.
Of everything that can be designed, what's the most important thing to design? Right? Just sit with that question for a while. Number one, like, it's kind of a crazy question. But
not really.
It invites you into a contemplative space, which I think is amazing, right? So that question came to me in Italy. It came to me through the lens of architecture because I'm studying architecture over there, right? And I'm literally, I could see the Palazzo Vecchio, and the Duomo. I mean, like I was in what would have been the medieval city walls of Firenze, Florence. And this question comes to me. And my immediate thought was typological architecture. What's the most important thing to design? Is it a church where people can commune with God, right? Or is it a hospital where like people get healed? Or is it a school where education is transferred, and lives are changed because of the acquisition of information? Or, or is it like a museum, where we pay homage to our past, So I was thinking about it through that lens. And my answer was the most important thing to design is a life, not a typology of architecture, but a life. And I naively believed that the principles of design of art within architecture could be applied to designing a life. And so I tried to create a methodology for designing my life, the person I wanted to be, not the person who I was and would probably become as a default of what had been poured into me. No, the person I wanted to choose to become. How do I design a path for that person? And so one of the tools was a list of 100 wants, needs, desires, dreams, and goals. And I understood the power of that list in terms of its conscious and subconscious impact in my life, right? And so I did that, and I believed that through the intentionality of choice, I could accomplish everything on this list. So success for me, I literally defined success was the progressive realization of your worthwhile wants, needs, desires, dreams, and goals. I learned after being introduced to the limit of my abilities and all these challenges that we've been talking about, I learned that success is the person you become as you're pursuing your God-given wants, needs, desires, dreams, and goals. So what was significant, that your question and your comment just triggered in me, what was significant for me was understanding it wasn't fully only about accomplishing all these things. Because there were some things that I had the courage to dream, but I would never accomplish. And that doesn't mean I'm a failure, right? It just means that maybe I had a capacity limit, or maybe something. We don't control everything, right? So it's not that if I don't accomplish these dreams, I'm a failure. Now it was, did the pursuit allow me to become better and different and more compassionate and more empathetic and more loving and more transparent and more open and more like, the dreams and goals themselves aren't, hey, if you don't achieve these, you're a failure. The dreams and goals invite you on a path to become something better, to become something different. And that becoming is what you can share with the world. And so I remember in the moments of my weakness and probably depression and all of these things where I'm feeling like I can't achieve these dreams and goals, and I must be a loser. I must be, it was in those moments that God sort of whispered in me and said, in me, you're completely acceptable. In me, you're completely adequate. So it's not about accomplishing these things. These things are a gift that I'm giving to you to allow you to start a path of pursuit that along that path I will use to create a better version of Justin. And so I really believe now, as I sit here today, that success is the people we become as we pursue our God-given dreams. I really believe that that's what life is about.
Ooh, I knew we were going to get pretty deep today.
Yeah.
Wow. Pastor Hilton on the mic. I love it. I absolutely love it. And it reminds me so much about my recent journey with my executive coach. And while she taught me many, many things, the one main piece that she taught me, Justin, that you'll appreciate, with ties in perfectly with your word pursuit. For me, that means embrace the journey.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's all the journey. It's probably very much like you. I would imagine you have a checklist and spreadsheets, and my wife makes fun of me, and I'm a very organized, and that's what design, whether you're architectural, graphic, right?
Yep.
We like organization.
That's right.
So I would check a box, and that made me feel good. I had those 100 dreams, desires, pursuits. And then I realized that once I got there, like, what's next, right? And she said, look, Todd, like, don't get hung up on that. And I was also a so-called perfectionist, which I've talked about that on the show. I have a whole episode about that, and I've dropped that since. And that was probably the first thing to do, was just to get rid of that notion, that label. Mm-hmm. But when she taught me to embrace the journey, everything changed for me. I was able to enjoy the process, which is what it's all about. And if that thing that I desired or pursued happens, great. If it doesn't, that's fine too, because that's what I wanted to do, was pursue it. The idea of pursuing it made me happy. Yeah. And I'm going after it. And what happens, happens, right? It's out of my control to some degree, because I've poured into it. I don't do anything less than 100%, right? So I'm going to do my best. I'm going to put the effort in. So
you know what taught me?
Embrace the journey.
You know what taught me? One thing that taught me that. So before architecture, I was an artist, right? I won the Ohio Governor's Art Show twice. Yeah.
I didn't read that.
That's not on there, right? It's
just, there wasn't enough room. That's like page 3. Come on.
Well, I mean,
artist 2?
I was like, I don't know. I think I was like 14 and 15 or something like that. So I won it twice.
Drawing, painting, what medium?
Multiple. But I won those shows with graphite, right? So pencil. Okay. And then the other was colored pencil, right? So it was graphite. And I didn't know, because again, we don't understand, my family didn't understand post-secondary education. So when you win that art show, your name is on a list that's purchasable by art schools across the nation. So like all of a sudden you start getting solicitations from art schools. Sure. Right? And you start getting, and so I got a full ride scholarship offer from the Savannah School of Art and Design. That's one of, I mean, that's like one of the best. I didn't know it.
Premier school, even Cleveland.
Like an idiot, I said no. We turned it down because I wanted to be an architect, not an artist. And I didn't know, because again, we didn't understand the landscape of higher education. I didn't know that they had an architecture major. And I could have went there on a full ride scholarship for art, double majored in architecture, and still for free. I didn't know any of that, right? So, but the point is, I was apparently this really good artist before I went into architecture, right? So decades later, I meet Rick Keller, right? CEO of PEGS Foundation, and they deal with mental health, right? And they support mental health efforts and all this other kind of stuff. And art has been proven to be something that helps with mental illness and mental health, right? And so PEGS Foundation has a art gallery, and they curate like 3, 4, 5 shows per year. And so I used to come to every art opening, every gallery opening. And Rick thought I was coming to support him, right? Which, I mean, in some respects I was. Yeah. But I was an artist. I wanted to see the art, and I wanted to support the artist. And all that. So he says to me one day, he's like, look, man, he's like, you've been coming for years. He's like, you don't have to keep coming to these just to make me feel good. And I was like, no, I said, Rick, I actually am an artist. I appreciate this. And he's like, you're not an artist, because nobody knew. Right? Nobody, that's not on my professional anywhere. Right. So he's
and
like,
it's such a unique skill, right? Not everybody can do that.
Right. And it's not like, some people may have a hobby or may have a kind of skill, but like to call yourself an artist is something different, right? Sure. So I said to him, I am an artist. And he's like, no, you're not. So he's arguing with me, right? Boy. So I showed him a couple pieces of work on my phone. And he's like, He's like, oh, you're legit. And I said, well, I mean, I don't know how legit I am. He said, you need to do a show here. And I'm thinking, yeah, that's not happening. Like, I've never displayed my art ever in life.
Aside from that, the one that you got awarded.
You're right. But that was in high school.
Yeah.
So,
right.
you know, and
Not
so as a grown man, never. Right. And so, I was just like, no. And when I lived in Italy, I was taught by Charles Cecil, who was the first American to ever be taught the concepts and skills of artistry from the Renaissance to non-Italian artists.
Oh.
Okay. So he started his own school in Italy, and he opened it up to Americans that wanted to come over there and learn these techniques. And so I learned under this guy, right? So, but I never display myself. So long story short, I get suckered in to doing this art show, right? They forced me to commit to doing it.
Okay.
And so I'm like, all right, fine, I'll commit. But like they were booked for years out.
Sure.
So
right.
I'm thinking by time this thing comes,
They'll
forget, I'll forget, I'll be
Right.
somewhere else, you know. And so I committed. All right, I'll do it. And then I get this call a couple months later. They're like, hey, we had a cancellation. And so we need to,
we
want to bump you up. And I'm like, all right, so like what? You're going to bump me up to like maybe like a year out instead of 3 years out. And they're like, no, I'm like, we're thinking like in the next 4 months or so, like, can you, and I'm thinking like, what? You know, I had two immediate fears. Number one, did I even have enough content to carry an entire show?
Right.
Right. And two, is it any good? Like,
It's art.
you know what I'm saying?
Subjective.
Still, but I battle inadequacy, right? So to
We all
put
do.
yourself out there,
Right.
like, you know,
Yeah.
because mine was birthed out of my mother, God bless her. We've had this conversation, and I went through grief recovery about this. But my first dream in life, I communicated to my mom when I was 9, and she basically told me no. Okay. Now, as a child, you're not able to make a distinction between situation and person, right? So like if your parents get divorced or if daddy leaves mom, the child says, what's wrong with me that daddy left? Not what's wrong with the marriage, right?
Sure.
So when my mother said no, what I internalized that as her not believing that I was good enough or adequate enough to accomplish my dream, right? That's how I internalized it. And so I decided never again will I ever be perceived as inadequate, even though I believe I was, because I believe what I internalized my mother to be saying to me. But I decided never again will I ever be perceived that way. That put me on this path of hyper perfectionism and hyper performance, because what I didn't realize is that at that moment, which by the way, my second dream was to be an architect. Okay. And it was a plan B to the plan A dream, which my mom told me I couldn't do.
Are you able to share the?
Oh yeah.
Or,
It seems
okay.
shallow. My first dream was to be a wide receiver in the NFL.
oh, okay.
Right? Not to like cure cancer, nothing,
Oh, okay.
nothing. You know, to play football.
Sure. We
And
all
my
did.
mom's was like, no.
Yeah.
Right? Now, granted, I didn't break 100 pounds until halfway through my senior year in high school. So I literally was Steve Urkel. Okay.
Yeah.
So I get it. She looked at me like there's no way, right? Now, what's crazy is my cousin, who had the same dream, whose parent, and it's same build, same, like everything about us was the same. His parents said yes. Mine said no. Okay. He goes on to pursue that dream, T.Y. Hilton. He ends up making it to the NFL. He ends up being a multi-year Pro Bowler, right? He ends up setting for an entire year. He set the record for catches and receiving yards. I mean, like he was at the top of the fantasy football league, you know, when fantasy football came out. I mean, this guy was living my dream, you know, and I had to watch it. Like, you know, like, and I'm sitting there going, it was possible, right? So she squashed that dream, right? And I internalized it, and she was trying to protect me.
Yeah. It
And
wasn't
who
malicious.
knows?
Yeah.
I might have played in my first game, got cracked coming across the middle and been like, you know what? This is not
It was
for me.
football.
Who knows, right?
Right.
But she stole that dream, and so instead I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to be the greatest artist that I can be, and I want to do architecture, and I want to blah blah blah. And that was the first thing that I ever won was that year. I won an art contest that year. I was in 5th grade, 9 years old, and then like that's when I just started like constructing. Not architectural construction, but I started constructing this facade to hide behind, right? Mm-hmm. Every success that I achieved was another brick. I just won this art show. I'm 9 years old, but I won this art show. Mm-hmm. So that was one brick. And then I won this, and that was another brick. And then I won this, and so I was like creating all of these successes, which I believed I could control so that I could create the perception of success that I could hide behind. So no one really knew that no matter how old I became, I was still just a 9-year-old inadequate boy.
Right.
Right. And so I started my architectural career by constructing a fake facade to hide behind. I didn't know it. I didn't understand it. And I didn't understand how that inadequacy was birthed and fed. But when you look at my resume and all that kind of stuff, it makes total sense that I became this hyper-performing person. Mm-hmm. And I had to achieve massive amounts of success, right? So here I am thinking that, can I do an art show? Can I put my art on public display for public consumption? Is this me coming out from behind the facade? Are people going to judge me? You know, like this was like legit.
And let's put a timestamp on that, just so when was this?
This was before COVID, maybe like a couple years before COVID. So I would say maybe 8 years ago.
Okay. Something. Were you in the role? Were you in the Leadership Akron role?
I was.
At the time?
No, I was in my last role at Kent State. So I was the senior administrator for community outreach at Kent State.
Okay.
So I was in my last 2 to 3 years at Kent State, which I had been in for 18 years. So a lot of what's on that resume had already happened.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I had done all the graduated. Right. I had become the first, senior associate vice president of Kent State. I had done all that. I mean, like, my facade looked really good.
Right.
Right. But what no one knew about me was I was this artist. And so coming out from behind this constructed success was scary. And I didn't know if I wanted to do it. I decided, all right, let me see, right? The first thing I need to do is see if I even have enough content, right? I had a ton because I had artwork that it was like 40 years of art, right? I had a ton. And I'm sitting there going, well, now I have to figure out what to put in the show of all of this stuff, right? And maybe pick the stuff that you think is the best, right? And to your earlier point of embracing the journey, the gift was this. Just like you mentioned, we don't do anything without intentionality. Like everything for us has to be in order and doesn't. So I'm not just going to put my stuff on the wall.
Right.
I wanted to invite people on a journey through my work.
Right.
Right.
Because you also have an architectural background. So you're thinking about,
I'm designing the process.
It's not just the art.
It's not the art.
It's the space as someone walks through.
Correct.
And enjoys the art.
And so of course I went to the space.
Right.
I took pictures of the space.
Hyperachiever too.
I threw that into Photoshop. And then I took all of my art.
Oh my God, you and I are so much alike, dude.
Digitized it, scaled it, and I made literal mock-ups of the entire art show in Photoshop, right? Because, and Rick was just like, nobody has ever done this, bro.
Yeah,
and I'm like, this is this, but here's what happened. As I was finding all of my work, because some of it was in, friends and families' homes and stuff like that, I would do stuff and give it away, right?
Sure, yeah.
As I started finding my work, each piece of art was a time capsule.
Mm.
And every time I found a piece of art, I found the person I was when I did that piece. And it invited me into this contemplative, reflective moment where I was like, oh, that's right. I did this piece of work because this was going on and blah, blah, blah. And what was important to me at that time was this. And it literally was this invitation to be reintroduced to the person that I was from the perspective of the person that I had become.
Mm. Ironically, coming back full circle to a nonprofit organization who has a gallery.
Great point.
And also a fundamental mission to help with mental health issues because art is a therapy.
Yeah. No, great.
So
great point.
It's
a great point. And it's important to take a moment to understand the significance of the words that we choose to describe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Certain truths and realities. So yeah, it's just like I said, my sleeping disorder, I always viewed as a shame, a thorn in my flesh that I wanted God to deliver me from, right? And I'll never forget a buddy of mine, never forget this. We were driving to Cleveland and he said to me, we were talking about, my sleeping disorder. He said, have you ever thought that your sleeping disorder was one of the greatest gifts God ever gave you?
Mm.
Just a simple question. Just like saying, you ever thought about maybe that wasn't unhealthy? Like those gifts of being invited into a moment to contemplate something, bro, that changed my life.
Right.
Changed my life. Just him depositing that question.
Right.
And so, yeah, it wasn't per se unhealthy or healthy. It just was what it was.
Right.
Right. And if we have the ability to see it that way and understand how can I, or how was it, or how did God use it to make me who I am, allow me to become something different, better, blah, 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 or share it with others, equip them, inspire them, encourage them, yada, yada. But that art show was another transformative moment in which I realized this was all about inviting me to be reintroduced to myself and to embrace the journey. And so when you do a show, you're supposed to name the show, right? And it's part of marketing. Pegs wanted to know so they could market it, blah, blah, blah. And I said, look, I don't have a title. And they're like, well, we got to have something. I said, this work is my signature. I said, so if you need a title for this show, call it Signature. So that process, which was another super defining moment for me, is what I immediately thought of when you said embrace the path. Mm. It's everything. Man, it's everything.
Wow. That was really interesting. Really interesting. I love that.
And that wasn't on the resume.
It wasn't.
That wasn't on the
and I usually ask you to say, what would you like to leave the audience with? But actually, I would like to leave there. This is a great way to end because I want people to really think about what you just said. It's really powerful, impactful. Man, I love this conversation. Thank you.
Me too. I wish it was
we could
10 more hours.
Yeah, I know. That's what Kemp said. Oh boy, you're gonna have to. You want a 60-minute show? So, but no, this is great, and we could go on. And I thought, man, I got more notes here than I think I have on any other show. So much to unpack, but that's been great, man. Thank you so much for blazing those trails, and inspiring and motivating, and for your role in Leadership Akron, and for giving back, pouring back into others, like Robert did to you. So, and thanks for getting vulnerable with us and sharing, some of your inadequacies.
Yeah, you're welcome. This has been transformative for me. And in some ways, it's almost been therapeutic. You know what I mean?
I am a coach.
Thank you. Yeah, bro. Seriously. Like,
No,
it means everything to me. It means everything. So thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Bolt Podcast. I appreciate you spending some time with us today, and it's been a pleasure being part of your journey toward growth, transformation, and leadership. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, share, and leave a review. It truly helps us reach more people like you. Interested in taking your leadership to the next level? Visit toddbertsch.com to learn more about my keynote speaking, corporate training programs, and my positive intelligence coaching. Look, I'm here to help you build the mental resilience and leadership skills that drive lasting change. And remember, progress comes from small, consistent steps. Keep moving forward, my friends. And before we wrap, a quick reminder that the information shared on the Bolt podcast, along with anything from toddbertsch.com or all my social media channels, is for informational and educational purposes only. We all need support, and if you're seeking meaningful guidance, one of the best things you can do is talk to a licensed professional, whether that's a physician, therapist, or coach. Hey guys, take care of yourself, stay kind to your mind, and remember, help is always available when you need it. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you, and we'll see you next time.